What's up guys, Eric Thane here from Cinema Mastery, and today we're going to be talking about some iPhone cinematography. So last year I edited together a short video that I shot on my iPhone 7 Plus in Thailand while I was traveling out there. The video has gotten a lot of views, and consequently I've gotten tons of questions from people on how to get results like I did with the iPhone. So today I'm going to show you 3 of my best beginner's tips for getting cinematic shots. If you want to watch the video that I shot in Thailand, there's a link in the description below, but for now, let's get into it. So first things first, it's important to understand that every camera has limitations, and especially with a cheap camera like an iPhone camera, you're going to have to work around some things that would be easier on more expensive cameras. It's not that the iPhone camera is bad, it just doesn't give you the same flexibility that a DSLR or a cinema camera would. So with that being said, tip number 1 is to use a filmmaking app. Instead of using the stock camera app on your iPhone, which gives you very little control over your camera settings, I recommend downloading a filmmaking app that will allow you to do a lot more. The one I use is called Filmic Pro, and Filmic Pro gives you manual control over all your camera settings, so you can adjust things like your exposure, you can set your white balance, your resolution, frame rate, and shutter speed, and even change the focus of your camera lens. In fact, it does so many things that it's an absolute must-have if you want to shoot cinematic video. When you first go into the app, the first thing I do is tap on the settings button, then tap on resolution. Here I'll change my aspect ratio to 2.39:1, which will give us a more cinematic looking frame size. Then I'm going to put my resolution all the way up to 4K 2160p and set the quality setting to Filmic Extreme for best image quality. We'll also leave the high efficiency codec turned on. Next, let's go back and go into frame rate, and we'll leave our frame rate at 24 frames per second in both capture and playback speeds. Now we can leave the menu and set up our white balance, exposure, and focus. By tapping on this color wheel button on the left, we can now change the color of the shot. You can use this color graph to dial in the exact color you want, or just tap the auto white balance button and let the camera decide, then tap it one more time to lock it in so it isn't changing during your shot. Next, for exposure and focus, this next button will bring up those controls, and you can now use the wheel on the left to set your exposure and the wheel on the right to set your focus. Alternatively, you can just use the on-screen controls to auto expose and autofocus wherever you place them, and then just tap them again to lock them. Now you're all set. Hit the record button on the bottom right of the screen and start shooting. If you're interested, you can download Filmic Pro from the App Store for around 15 bucks, and with everything you get from this app, I promise you the investment is worthwhile. Okay, number 2 is use a stabilizer. One of the biggest things plaguing most iPhone video is that the image is too shaky when it's handheld. Now the iPhone does have image stabilization built in, but it's mostly for taking still photos and still doesn't do a very good job when you're walking around. So I recommend using a 3-axis gimbal for your phone to get smooth shots. There are basically 3 gimbals out there on the market right now that are really popular. First is the DJI Osmo Mobile 2, which can be had for around $129. Next is the Zhiyun Smooth Q, which is about 99 bucks. And lastly is the Freefly Movi for around $299, so a little more expensive, but still worth checking out. I use the DJI Osmo 1 on my Thailand video, and it's a great option, but each of these has different features, so I would recommend checking each of them out and deciding which one is best for you. And lastly, number 3 is color grading. Because I mentioned the iPhone camera has some limitations when compared to more expensive cameras, you can actually go a long way toward fixing problems with the image and making your image look more cinematic using color correction and color grading. I usually use Lumetri Color inside Adobe Premiere Pro for my color grading, but the things I'm showing you here can be done inside any editing software. So the first thing I'm going to do is adjust my exposure, contrast, highlights, shadows, and saturation to get a properly balanced image. I usually like to make my images a little bit darker, which I think helps cover up some of the artifacts you get from the iPhone sensor, and adding a little bit more saturation to your images can really help them start to pop. Then I'll go into the Creative tab and choose a LUT to adjust the colors and make them look a little bit more interesting. Premiere Pro has a bunch of really awesome presets you can start with, so I'll choose one of those and then make adjustments to get it looking just right. So for my Thailand video, I actually used LUTs from lutify.me, and you can check out their website if you're interested in those, but if you don't have the money to spend, the ones built into Premiere can take you a long ways if you use them right. Anyway, there you go, 3 tips for getting cinematic shots on an iPhone. If you guys liked this video, feel free to subscribe. It really helps support the channel, and I've got a lot more content like this coming your way. And if you're interested in some more advanced cinematography tips, I do have a daily email that I send out with film filmmaking tips and business advice, so go over to cinemamastery.com to subscribe. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.